Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And, of course, you can find the show on iTunes, on TuneIn. We're now on Stitcher as well, also Google. We're not on Google Play yet, but we will be very soon. And apologies if I'm a little all over the place, and if you notice that my voice is a bit off. I am sick as a dog right now. Just like, I don't know, in 24 hours, everybody I know got sick. My throat is very sore. My fucking landlord was blasting the heat all of last night, so my room was very dry. So apologies all around if I sound weird, if you hear me sniffling or anything like that. That is just because I feel pretty terrible. But anyways, I wanted to actually before we get to today's show, because we're waiting to get Robbie Martin, good friend of the show, on the line. Never mind. I believe Robbie is here. Robbie, are you there?
I'm here, Pierce. How are you?
I'm
sorry to hear you're under the weather. I've just heard you sniffling.
Yeah, I know. And I think it was a combination of also having a slide back smoking weekend. I quit smoking cigarettes for probably about a month and a half now. And then over the weekend I sort of let the stresses of work and stuff get to me, so I ended up smoking quite a bit, and I think that definitely did not help my sore throat.
Did you go cold turkey?
Well, I'm going cold turkey now just because the thought of smoking or chewing Nicorette is just sounds terrible to me as it is right now. I usually chew Nicorette when I do quit. And I'll probably be chewing some in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I switched to e-cig for a while, and now I'm trying to get off that, so I'm on a nicotine patch.
The patch is good. My friend does the lozenge as well. But enough about our not smoking. Quickly before we get into today's show with Robbie, I just wanted to thank Kenneth for recently becoming a patron of mine on Patreon. Of course, if you want to support my work for as little as $1 a month, you will receive the bonus podcast for $1 a month or more. And anyone can do that by just going to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond. And also, I should be posting probably after today's show, but an advance or early access to the latest episode of Clandestine. Tom Secker and I discussed the Netflix show American Vandal, so definitely check that out. It should be posted up pretty soon, so it'll be available to all of my patrons. But anyway, enough rambling around, and I should probably hand it over to Robbie soon so I can take a breather and let my throat rest. But I wanted to have Robbie on in the first hour. We're going to have Ed Opperman in the second hour to discuss the I kind of hesitate to use this word, but scandal that is unfolding on a nearly daily basis in Hollywood, but in the media in general, as well as politicians. It seems like with every passing day, there are more and more horrific allegations emerging of sexual abuse and sexual harassment. We've got Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, George Bush, a.k.a. David Copperfield, Mark Halperin, and And I actually have a little something on the David Copperfield thing, Robbie, that I'll get to in a moment. But it seems like more and more, every day there are just more and more celebrities, people in power that are being outed as, at, I don't know, I suppose at best, serial sexual harassers, and at worst, sexual predators, rapists and things. And Robbie, you recently, you and Abby had an amazing episode on this for Media Roots a few weeks ago, or a week ago, I think. And I basically just kind of wanted to rip off of what you and Abby were talking about. But Robbie, just your initial kind of take on this. I mean, because it does seem like there is something of a societal shift where suddenly now it's like the floodgates have opened, and we're seeing that everybody is guilty of this. So, I mean, what's your just sort of take on this as a social phenomenon right now?
Well, I mean, as a social phenomenon, it's really very interesting because it goes along with, it fits into the paradigm of what some people sort of pejoratively call call-out culture. And even, the alt-right will, doesn't believe in rape culture, so they will refer to anyone bringing up the idea of rape culture as a social justice warrior. So it's like going against, obviously, that whole mindset, because a lot of the alt-right, blew up over Harvey Weinstein and was trying to use it as a political tool, to get people, to get liberal celebrities in trouble who are like working with Weinstein. So it's interesting for a lot of those reasons, just because, it does show very clearly that there is a rape culture in the United States, and it's very clearly operating more frequently, or at least more disgustingly. We can't really say if there's more rape culture in entertainment or celebrity culture, but it's more disgusting because you would think, common sense would tell you, well, how could these people possibly get away with it? Especially someone, Weinstein is one good example, but he was like on the top of the pyramid. He had his own production company. That to me makes some sense how he was able to get away with that. He held a lot of power, and now we've just learned that he also hired ex-Mossad agents to try to squash this shit, which is fascinating that he was able to, that he went to those lengths. But I mean, just in general, someone like Kevin Spacey, to me, is more shocking that he actually, and now we've learned that he tried to grope Richard Dreyfuss's son's penis in front of Richard Dreyfuss while they were reading lines together 20 years ago. I mean, the fact that he was able to get away with things like that for so long is astonishing. I mean, it really does make you wonder, how can a conspiracy of silence exist for this long in something that involves so many people in entertainment culture? I mean, even now, the House of Cards writers are saying that he tried to grope them and was sexually aggressive on set. So it just seems like he was.
Oh, Robbie, did I lose you there?
No, I just ended my thought kind of abruptly. I ran out of steam.
No, I know what you mean. Well, this whole notion of a conspiracy of silence. I mean, it's almost. I don't want to dismiss that that's what's been going on, but I mean, it's at a level where, it's shocking that people were quiet. You just brought up, for instance, the House of Cards stuff. I mean, many of the allegations that had surfaced, we're talking about 20, 30, maybe even 40 years ago, when you look at the Cosby stuff. But you fast forward to, like you said, writers on the American House of Cards. I mean, this show is currently out, and Spacey was doing this sort of stuff. So it brings the kind of, I wonder if it was really a conspiracy of silence, or if this is just par for the course, that this is just almost like an for instance, with the Weinstein stuff, Brad Pitt, went up to him and yelled at him when he was dating Gwyneth Paltrow. These things were happening in a fairly open way. Some of these confrontations. And, it makes you wonder, too, to the extent that, how many people in the, now it's all, the question is, oh, well, everybody in Hollywood knew. Well, did everybody in the media know as well? And they sort of purposefully, kept their mouth shut or things like that. I know there was a story I read in connection with the Weinstein stuff where he beat up a guy in front of a whole press gaggle. And it was a non-story until, most recently, because basically everybody knew not to report on it. Well, I think. No, go ahead,
Robbie.
Robbie.
Jump in really quick on the conspiracy of silence. I think that what you just pointed out is more what I mean by that. It's not so. Yeah, in terms of Weinstein, there was a lot of people who openly knew about it, but somehow it didn't trickle down to the public. Public didn't know about it. But you have to assume that a lot of people in the media did know about it. And that's one example you just mentioned about how they just didn't make a story out of this crazy thing that he did. But I think, in terms of the media, not talking about it, is the primary way in which it is a conspiracy of silence. And I think the most striking example of that is Jimmy Savile, because he worked for a media, the biggest British media outlet. So that was, I think, the most extreme case of this conspiracy of silence that I'm talking about. And sort of on these other variations of it, you see a mixture of the media being somewhat complicit, all these celebrities secretly knowing about it but not telling the public. And then also, in some instances, celebrities knowing about it, trying to warn the public, but not directly, like Seth MacFarlane, like in Family Guy, dropping jokes about Kevin Spacey being a pedophile, or Harvey Weinstein, I don't remember exactly what he said, but so I guess I just wanted to clarify exactly what I meant by that. But I think Savile still stands up as the most extreme example of that, where it's obvious that the BBC was trying to cover up, his activities for possibly decades. We don't really know for sure, but.
Oh, the Savile stuff is insane. I brought that up with someone recently. We were talking about this, and I brought up the Savile. When you look at that, there's also the whole: was he the Yorkshire Ripper? Was he working in tandem with this guy? They were Yorkshire police were finding bodies, near Savile's property and never being questioned. So yeah, the Savile one is so extreme. Also because literally everybody at the BBC apparently knew about this. Well, Robbie, kind of parsing this out a little bit more, now it's we've reached this sort of, I don't know, this this new sort of level or this new sort of, area when it comes to all of this stuff. And I really kind of wonder, can Hollywood or the entertainment industry at large survive this? Because now we've got, I'm sure you've seen articles and stuff like this, but, people asking the question whether it's okay to watch House of Cards anymore. Which is I don't know. I've personally never really liked Kevin Spacey. I always found him to be really creepy. And there's something weird about him. This is a totally sort of an aside, but, people can believe me or not, but, I know a guy who knows a guy who was propositioned by, Kevin Spacey multiple times. He worked at a bar and Kevin Spacey would come into the bar constantly, basically trying to pick him up. Obviously they were, of age and stuff like that, but he said it was in a very kind of upsetting way, in a very sort of persistent, scary sort of a way. But and so now people are questioning, oh, well, can we watch a Kevin Spacey film? Then of course it's, what about Woody Allen? What about the new Louis C.K. movie, which is talk about a terrible timing to come out amongst all this, not to mention his own the allegations against him. What do you see happening in Hollywood right now in terms of all of this stuff? Are we, it's because now it's they're sort of drawn these lines and these camps. You're either with them or against them. And how do you see that kind of progressing out?
Well, it's a really good question. Because there's other signs that Hollywood is in danger. If you completely remove all these new revelations everything you just mentioned from the equation, I mean, Hollywood is in financial trouble. I mean, the movies' budgets are so insanely high these days, and the amount of return that they have to get on them is, I mean, just keeps the stakes keep getting higher and higher for all these film companies. So I think that in general they're in danger, and this might just exacerbate their collapse. But I mean, if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think this is powerful enough to destroy Hollywood. But what I think could be is the possibility of pedophile networks. And I don't mean like, you know, what people are alleging happened with Pizzagate. I just mean child actors being trafficked, not even like in an organized fashion, just by agents and agencies or, you know, secret pedophiles who have power in Hollywood. And I think that, you know, the movie, An Open Secret, which for some reason didn't get distribution, very good distribution, even though it's made by like a professional documentary filmmaker, shows that there's a lot more revelations that are possibly going to come out. I mean, you know, having to do with just Bryan Singer, who already got sued. I don't know what ever happened with that lawsuit specifically, but, you know, have you seen this movie, Pierce, An Open Secret?
I haven't. No, I have it downloaded. It's on my computer. Okay. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I do know. I mean, I know the whole with Michael Egan, who's one of the child. I think he accused Bryan Singer of raping him and molesting him. I know some of the sort of overarching stuff within An Open Secret. You know, some of these child agents and, you know, acting coaches and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I guess one of the most disturbing things that's revealed in the movie is you get insight into the mindset of some of these like agencies or these powerful people in Hollywood who do molest children, and even some of their own accusers. As they're grown up into adult age, they've confronted some of these agents who have molested them, and the agents will still say, you know, age is just a social construct. You know, you kind of came on to me. I mean, it's pretty disturbing, the level of ego and just the arrogance of that. It's like they don't think they did anything wrong. That's what's so remarkable about it. I mean, and you can even get a sense of that in Kevin Spacey's first statement when he had to respond to the allegations. He decided to come out as gay in response to being accused of attempted rape. I mean, that's how egotistical and insane some of these people must be. I mean, it's probably the tip of the iceberg, unfortunately. So I guess to answer your question more succinctly, I don't know if it's actually going to be the death of them, but this is the tip of the iceberg. And I think that that's pretty obvious. And see, I guess, who else?
Oh, sorry, Robbie, you broke up there towards the end.
Oh, I just said this is definitely the tip of the iceberg. I don't think it's going to be the death of Hollywood, but I do think there's going to be more that are going to be exposed for sure. We're just going to have to wait to see who that's going to be.
Oh well, and it seems as if the what's going on in Hollywood is just one aspect. I mean, as I said at the top of the hour, I mean, it's not just Hollywood. We've got people in the media, Mark Halperin. I saw David Korn, I believe, from Mother Jones. There were allegations, you know, and as you and Abby pointed out when you were talking, even George Bush, David Copperfield, which is, for people that don't know, this is apparently was like a running joke that he told all the time before he groped women. And some of this was as recent as what, Robbie, like a year ago or something?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was like 2016, I think.
Nutty. Well, so anyway, I was going to mention it when I saw that he said David Copperfield. I found that really unsettling because, of course, you know, as this whole thing is unfolding, people have, I guess, maybe forgotten or something, but David Copperfield was accused of doing even more horrific stuff, of drugging women on his private island, very near to his friend Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Epstein, of course, would dole out tickets to David Copperfield shows all the time. That was something that he, in some of the criminal complaints and the depositions and stuff like that, some of these young girls remembered receiving tickets for David Copperfield shows. Him and Epstein are friends. So I found that even more unsettling that, Bush used that as a joke to grope women's butts. And David Copperfield is most likely connected in some level to something illegal in sexual violence. And it just sort of makes you wonder, is that like a double inside joke or something like that? And then there's also what's his name? David Blaine, right? He's also been wrapped up in this.
Him. Yeah, he was really raping somebody and drugging them as well, I think. Yeah.
Well, as you said, I think it is the tip of the iceberg. There is like more to this and stuff, but I'm also particularly interested in, again, the way that this is being interpreted, or the way that this is being presented. Again, everything is identity politics, even when it comes to something like this. And we kind of touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but for instance, I mean, it's more or less okay to attack Weinstein, because he's a Democrat and he gave a lot of money to Hillary Clinton. And we can sort of support his victims, even though, these are the same type of people that many on the alt-right were attacking, as PC warriors and this and that. But now suddenly they're heroes, because they're denouncing Harvey Weinstein. And then on the sort of the other end of this, you've got the whole conspiracy crowd just jumping on the Corey Feldman bandwagon, even with this sort of, and I'm not denying Corey Feldman when he says that he was molested. I believe that to be true. But there's, some serious holes and issues with a lot of what Corey Feldman says. The biggest one being that he still, to this day, defends Michael Jackson as a saint, and continues to dress like Michael Jackson, continues to act like Michael Jackson. So there again, now, I'm not saying that Michael Jackson touched Corey Feldman, but I find that, that's a bit odd, that this guy that's sort of, and that now Corey Feldman is asking for a ton of money out of all of this. So, I don't know, Robbie, what's your kind of take on this sort of politicization of this whole thing? Because, again, that seems like that's a great way to, only tell one side of the story and to, again, kind of obscure no one's talking about James Wood.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here, Robbie. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, it's really, really unfortunate the way that this got so politicized out of the gates. It turned into like a right-wing anti-Hollywood thing really quickly. And let's just put this out there too, is the alt-right, especially in the last couple of months, have increased their cynical politicalization of events way more than usual. Just as on a side issue, but this relates to what you're saying, is at one of the last, I believe it was another protest in Charlottesville, someone from the alt-right unfurled a giant banner in front of an Antifa contingent saying that they were pro-NAMBLA. They did that here in New York at Columbia when Cernovich spoke. Yeah, so that was obviously that was a stunt by one of Cernovich's people, but everybody in the alt-right actually picked it up and seriously repeated it to all their audiences. So that just tipped me off that these people just do not even respect their own audience at this point. It's that's how fucking cynical these people are. But then you have, and then they did it again recently with this mass shooting at this church. They said that the guy had an Antifa banner on his Facebook page. Someone photoshopped the Antifa logo onto his Facebook page, and then once again, all these websites and people just repeat it ad nauseum, even though it's fake. So they don't care about truth. They don't care if people on the right wing they don't care about sexual predators. These are the same people that say rape culture does not exist. So they really don't care. And if they really did, they would think both Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were disgusting sexual predators. So, I mean, you don't see very many, that's the unfortunate part, is it's very politicized even on both sides. There are plenty of Democrats too who still deny to this day that any of the rape allegations against Bill Clinton are true, that it's all right-wing propaganda. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not. People in power tend to be disgusting people. And, I mean, I think it's, if we really knew what Trump and Bill Clinton have done in terms of their, the lewd sexual behavior, I'm sure most people would be disgusted if there wasn't this political distorted lens put over it. But unfortunately, it seems virtually impossible to be in a place of not having something politicized these days. I mean, it's inevitably everything becomes super politicized. Then you have people like James Woods somehow dodging this tidal wave of sexual assaulters, even after Amber Tamblyn told the story where he tried to pick up on her when she was 16 years old in Las Vegas. And this is a guy who's also obsessed with Pizzagate too. So
yeah,
it's quite interesting that someone obsessed with Pizzagate, a male right-wing celebrity, tried to pick up a 16-year-old girl when he was a grown man. So.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it reminds me too of just, Mike Cernovich is always going on about the pedophiles this, the pedophiles that. Everyone's a pedophile. Vic Berger's a pedophile. And then he gets this bogus, NAMBLA, Antifa, I don't know what they were supposed to be, this banner. Supposedly they're in cahoots together. And Cernovich himself was accused of raping somebody. He has his own sort of past with all this stuff. And, the people that are the most obsessive, about these things, tend, not all the time, but, they can tend to sort of have some demons in the closet there. Like you mentioned this, on Media Roots, but, it's interesting that James Woods is out there trying to pick up 16-year-old girls, and he's also obsessed with Pizzagate. And maybe he doesn't see the two as being, as having similarities. But it's more just that, he's attracted to, young kids on some level. So he's attracted to, obsessively talking about Pizzagate all the time. They seem to go kind of hand in hand. Robbie, the other thing that I find, with this sort of Hollywood stuff is that, hopefully people will sort of start waking up to this as being a phenomenon that involves, everyone from all walks of life. How do you see that unfolding? Because right now, it seems like it's sort of okay to talk about how, people in Hollywood are predators. Again, people that refuse to acknowledge, things like date rape and other heinous crimes on the alt-right, are totally open to all of this stuff happening in Hollywood. How do you see this kind of evolving? Do you think people are going to sort of start understanding that this is something that happens on a daily basis to people you probably know?
I mean, that would be the result of it. I mean, just like child molestation, for example. I mean, just let's isolate it to that. I mean, statistically, a child is much more likely to get molested by someone that is in the family or is a neighbor or someone close to them. So even the ways our laws are designed in society are completely counterintuitive to that. So for example, like if you are a sex offender and you're on the sex offender registry, you're not allowed to be near a playground or a school within like a certain amount of like mile radius or something, which is statistically very rare that a child molester would go to like a playground and pick up a kid. That's more of like almost like a movie trope. That's like almost, I mean, not saying that doesn't happen, but that almost more is in the realm of like urban legend rather than reality and statistics. So I would hope that this would compel more people to understand the reality of sexual assault and sexual predatory behavior and even rape. But I really don't think it's going to, because people just tend to get in these hysterical narratives that don't line up with reality. I mean, and I guarantee you, if enough right-wing people get sucked up into this tidal wave of outing sexual predators, that's when you're going to see the alt-right say, "Oh, this is just another rape, hyping up rape culture, this is call-out culture, we can't take these allegations at face value, like anyone can make these up." I mean, that's going to be where they'll go if it starts going into their camp more. But I mean, they need to do some self-reflection, and I say that as if they're actually going to or capable of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole red-pilled movement in general is enmeshed with rape culture. I mean, there was a guy who used to go to Japan. He was one of the most famous red-pilled pickup artist guys who has videos of himself. And this is one of these guys that was very influential to Mike Cernovich and all these other pickup artist idiots. He would go to Japan and make instructional videos about how when you're dancing on a club dance floor in Japan, just take a Japanese girl's head and move and force it down to your penis as a pickup move to make her feel like she must give you a blowjob. So that is the default mindset for a lot of these people. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they're capable of doing any house cleaning, and they've been denying that rape cultures existed since the very beginning. And a celebrity, like a blonde, I don't even remember her name. Is it Lauren Southern? Came out of that whole thing being like, rape culture doesn't exist in America, but it exists in the Middle East. And she's made a whole career off of that. And it's interesting that they don't believe rape culture exists, but yet they're acknowledging all this Harvey Weinstein, all these other assault allegations against liberals. I mean, it just again shows that they're very disingenuous and they don't really care. But yeah, I think it's already been too politicized. And I also think part of the issue, the problem that's happening here already, is that there are things that don't necessarily rise to the level of sexual predatory behavior and assault that are being kind of mixed in together with this tidal wave. Like, oh, he tried to pick me up in a sleazy way. He asked me to go to dinner in a sleazy way, is not attempted rape. And I'm only reason I'm saying that is because I think it's very important that you differentiate, for example, a guy trying to pick you up in a sleazy way and you don't work for that guy, that is a far different than an actual case of sexual harassment where your boss or your employer tried to pick up on you in a sleazy way. So I also think that people need to be able to differentiate those things, and this needs to be talked about in a nuanced way. And it's hard to, because it's a very emotional subject. So I don't know if I'm hopeful that this is really going to sink in with the general public and we're going to have a better, truer understanding of rape, and how serious this issue is, or just even sexual harassment. But I was just speaking to Connor Habib, male porn star, who was basically, he made a great point about how, we're living in such a sexually repressed society where we have such messed up views of sex already that being able to fully take on and process this idea of rape culture or sexual assault and how much of a problem it is difficult in that framework, because we already have such a shame and a taboo around regular sex that's solely consensual. So that presents a problem too, of trying to really process this and understand it.
Oh, and as evidenced by, you're just talking about some of these alt-right figures, and so many of them are obsessed with this pickup artist stuff. I mean, like Cernovich was kind of into that. And if you listen to Cernovich or his idiot wife talking about how they first met, it's super, super creepy. He grabbed her and kind of brought her to him and was really aggressive, but she was, into it supposedly. And they're all kind of into it. It's interesting that they're all into this weird pickup artistry. Cernovich has all these bizarre, I don't even know, thoughts on his, his semen and how powerful his semen is, and how you should never wear a condom, and all of these weird that seem very much like this sort of repressed sexuality kind of run amok. It's then when they become unrepressed, they're just fucking psychos about all of it. And yeah, I think it does lead to this very sort of bizarre schizophrenic mindset, where they can some of these people can simultaneously denounce that there's really no problem with even like getting beyond the rape culture stuff. I mean, I found myself, and again, I'm sure I'm going to sound like a real PC warrior out there, and you can I don't know, get upset with me if you want to, but I mean, so much of this too is just a very male, patriarchal dominated society, where you get a lot of men that take advantage of everybody. And that's men and women, obviously, as look at Kevin Spacey, and stuff. I find that to be the most sort of interesting aspect to all of this, that hasn't quite been sort of touched on. But is sort of all and then of course you see people like Alec Baldwin, jumping out of the woodwork to be like, oh yeah, sorry guys, I was it's like, I don't know, I'm not trying to jump to conclusions, but you wonder, like, what's he covering up? What's he preparing himself for? Is another shoe going to drop and Alec Baldwin is up to something? Cause he's already now attacked, Anthony Bourdain's, girlfriend for, or was it Rose McGowan? One of them, attacked her for not coming forward, that she was part of the problem, that she should have done something about it. And, I guess, Robbie, on that note, cause this is sort of like, we hear this bandied about quite a bit. At the moment, many of the people that usually kind of, oh, well, she didn't say anything, she's making it all up. Those sort of, scumbags. They're not quite saying that right now when it comes to, these people in Hollywood, because of course, they want to believe that Harvey Weinstein is this monster and they want to railroad him. And not saying that he shouldn't be, but of course, because he is a liberal. What do you make of this, still there are people that, oh, well, why didn't they say anything? They're so powerful, but, they were powerful actresses too. Why didn't they come forward? I mean, what do you make of that right now? Is this just sort of, because I'll give it just as a brief, if you'll indulge me, my own personal kind of experience, and I'm not like trying to equate this with anything that, other people have gone through, but I went to see, with a bunch of my friends, I went to see a play that my friend was in, and we were sitting in the audience, and I, of course, got stuck next to, like, some weirdo who was chatting me up. He was definitely a gay guy. There were no questions about that. But, he was like we were talking about, oh yeah, I'm here to see so-and-so. Oh yeah, I'm blah, blah, blah's friend. And we're just sort of talking and whatever. And then the play starts. And I'm not joking. He, kind of leans over closer to me while we're in the audience, in our seats. And I'm just kind of like, whatever. And then he starts touching my thigh. And at first I kind of moved my thigh and I just figured, oh, his hand must have dropped. But then it proceeded to go on for almost the entirety of the first act of this play. And he, and it was his finger, then it was two fingers, then his whole hand was sort of touching my thigh up and down. And I kind of kept moving over to my friend who was like, why are you, shift over a little bit. And I sort of laughed it off. When the first act was over, this guy just disappeared. He never came back in. And I sort of like laughed it off, and I never really thought about it until this all came up again. And I was talking about this whole, Hollywood stuff with a friend of mine, and she asked me, she's like, oh, well, have you ever been, has anything ever like this happened to you? And I said, no, not really. And then this sort of popped into my head. But, I laughed it off. I didn't think much of it. I just was like, wow, wasn't that fucking crazy? But of course, on retrospect, while it was happening, I started saying like, oh my God, did I like lead him on? Did I give him some weird impression that he thought, we were going to, I don't know, go into the bathroom and fuck or something like that? And of course, at the end of the day, a man touched me in a way that made me feel really fucking uncomfortable and freaked me out. And this was in a public setting, and I said absolutely nothing. So, just as like a personal sort of touch on all of this, Because I'm still seeing more and more people. Oh, well, why didn't they say anything? Why aren't they coming forward? So I don't know, Ed, Robbie, if you have any kind of thoughts on that.
No, I mean it's a very good point. I mean that there's so many. I think there's so many complex dynamics that go into these situations that people who have this sort of clear-cut way of looking at it, like, well, this happened to you, why didn't you go to the police? And that's something that people, will say pretty often, like, why are they saying this on the internet and not going to the police? Why did they wait so long to say, to speak up? These situations can be extremely traumatic, and every individual has a very different way of processing trauma. Not everybody processes it in the same way. I mean, even Richard Dreyfuss's son, who says that Kevin Spacey tried to grope his penis in front of his dad, says that he was able to deal with it and process it by just laughing it off and actually like telling it as a joke at parties to people, like a real life true story that he could laugh at and other people could laugh at as well. And that was his way of sort of processing it and dealing with it. And he didn't come forward publicly with it until like a week ago. So he was sitting on that story for, 20 years or longer.
Yeah.
So I think everybody, processes this at their own pace. Some people don't feel comfortable coming forward until they're, like in their 40s, if they were even molested as a child. So I don't understand why, there would be so much, negativity going towards people who didn't speak up earlier. But on the other hand, I guess I can understand sort of this confusion of how could so many people have known about it? Let's just separate it from the victims themselves. So I think it's completely understandable why a victim of sexual assault or harassment would, keep it a secret and not feel comfortable talking about it at all or for quite a while. But I think it's different. There's a difference between those people not coming forward right away or speaking up and the people who knew about it, keep being able to keep it a secret also, like people who, colleagues or people who worked with people who were victimized. But you also have to realize that it's not their place either to out a victim. So like if your friend, just like a mock scenario, if you have a friend or a loved one who was raped or sexually assaulted and they told you about it, and they don't want to tell the public or out the person, the predator, it's not your business to do that. Unfortunately, that's a dilemma that, exists, is that you will be putting the victim in an extremely difficult position by outing them. And that's not fair to them. They need to be able to come forward at their own pace and when they feel comfortable. So I think there's a lot of complex dynamics that go into this that people just don't think about. And they just think it's this easy thing. It's like, well, why? It's super easy. You just come out and talk about it. Someone like Corey Feldman, though, is a little different. He's, beating around the bush, naming names for years and years. I would say he more falls into the category of he's doing it for a publicity stunt. Asking for $10 million for a documentary, that's absurd. I mean, dude.
Oh, it's not even a documentary, Robbie. It's a feature film.
Okay, yeah. So he's.
Yeah,
I mean,
which
I
is
think
even more like, what is? You really think this is going to happen?
Let's just put it this way: he's not a very good messenger for people to take seriously the idea of organized Hollywood pedophilia at this point, especially. So.
No, of course, and he, the Michael Jackson stuff, and that he more or less introduced Corey Haim to another man who abused him.
Yeah, and he's just weird. Like he even has like a harem of women who are like come from they're like ex-drug addicts and stuff. I don't know if you know about like his angels.
Corey's angels?
Collective. Yeah. It's just weird. It's just weirdness. I mean, is he just banging all those girls? Is it like a sexual harem? What is the deal with that? I mean, I don't find him to be a very authentic guy who I feel like I can glean a lot of truth and revelations from in general. So, I hope too many people don't donate to that Kickstarter he's doing. I guess that'll be my final word.
Oh yeah. And it's like, his Indiegogo, I think is what it is. If they don't make the goal, he still gets as much money. as whatever was donated, he gets to keep. So I mean, I don't know. He's at 200,000 right now. Is he just gonna get that and then what? What's he gonna do with that money? Is he gonna make a movie? No, I totally buy into Corey Haim's mother, her assertion that Feldman is a con artist, and that he's been, sort of, as you said, beating around the bush, saying he's going to name names and all this, and there's this whole perception. I'm gonna talk about this more in the second hour with Ed Opperman, but I'll bring it up with you right now, Robbie. I mean, there's this perception of, and Corey Feldman kind of plays this up. People are after him. That someone tried to kill him recently. He got arrested for weed, and that was a shakedown and all this stuff. And that there's all these fears. We can't come forward. These people are all. There's always the grand conspiracy. I think there's some truth to that. That you can be putting your life in danger. But all those young girls that Jeffrey Epstein molested, they came forward. They testified. They did what they did. They even came back after the whole humiliating experience of being molested, going through a trial, all that stuff. They even came back to sue again when he got the sweetheart deal. And I would argue Jeffrey Epstein is way more powerful than any pedophile in Hollywood. I think there's that is something that people should be a little bit more aware of and maybe a little bit weary of. These, the dark conspiracy that the only thing that will save us is money. If you give me money, then we'll solve this. I'll name everything. But I don't know, Robbie. We're getting up towards the end of this first 10 minutes. I thank you for joining me. I know I've been all over the place. I really am not feeling so good. But the last 10 minutes I'll give to you. What's your anything you kind of want to leave the listeners with in terms of what we've been seeing going on in Hollywood, in the media in general, and this whole sort of phenomenon right now where people are finally kind of coming forward and talking about this. Anything you kind of want to leave the listeners with?
Well, I guess I'll just go on a little bit of a tangent because I just have some sort of not fully formed thoughts, but I'll fire them off anyways. So one thought I have is that, less than 20 years ago, the accessibility of porn and different sexual fetishes and things like that, and just people's sexual vocabulary was far, far lower, 20 years ago. And I feel like, sexual culture has accelerated at a pretty ridiculous rate in the last 20 years. I mean, the accessibility alone is mind-boggling, of how many different niches and fetishes there are that you can explore, and, the amount of porn, and amateur porn as well. It's ridiculous. So I think, that's all very positive. I would like to think that's a very positive sign, for us to get out of this sort of sexually repressed framework that we live in. But at the same time, I think there's other sort of things that, can take advantage of that and can use it for nefarious purposes. So for example, you have the sex positivity culture, which had a really hard time dealing with the James Deen rape allegations at kink.com. Kink.com likes to pride itself as being this extremely sex positive, very edgy institution, which is trying to normalize this idea of consensual rough sex, bondage, BDSM, which I think is that's a positive goal because, there is a big difference between non-consensual rough sex, which to me is a form of sexual assault, versus consensual, pre-agreed upon things, safe words. All those things are totally healthy to do. They just have to be consensual and respectful. But I think, you see these things colliding. The James Deen rape allegation is a great example of how sort of this sex positivity culture doesn't really have a great way yet of dealing with, actual sexual assault necessarily. And, I believe porn stars, several of them, when they come forward and say they've been raped by a fellow porn actor, I'm almost, more inclined to believe people who have that level of experience to know the difference between consent and non-consent. I very strongly believe them, but yet I saw a lot of like sex positive writers and people who, defending kink.com and sort of not demanding that they do a house cleaning in the same way that, a lot of people now are demanding Hollywood do. And I find that troubling because if all institutions, it should be the sex positive ones that do, see all these things as okay and not taboo. It should be those people who really do draw the line and be like, no, this is not okay. These things are okay, but that is not okay. Like non-consent is not okay. And I feel like that was a teachable moment that was lost because, I think a lot of people have too much invested in this sex positive culture that they don't, it was too revealing maybe to out and really, throw under the bus someone like James Deen. I think we lost that opportunity, but I think there's another opportunity that, and maybe this is just my obsession with Vice and Gavin McInnes coming through, but I would argue that Vice magazine did a pretty large contribution to rape culture and not necessarily, and I'm not saying like on the side of like the red pill movement or the alt-right. I'm talking about rape culture in like hipster, like hip culture. They inserted sort of an acceptability of rape culture and misogyny and like patriarchy into like hipsterdom. And I feel that sort of trend is still affecting it today, where you have, electronic musicians, a famous guy like Gaslamp Killer outed as he drugged and raped 2 women at a show. And you have a bunch of his friends and colleagues defending him, and a lot of people in the hipster electronic music scene not wanting to really look inward and see, well, maybe we do have a problem here. Because in a lot of ways, the electronic music scene has become more of a pickup scene over the years. And I guess the reason I brought up Vice is because you go back to any magazine Vice put out in the early aughts, and you could see very clear examples of rapey writings, extremely disrespectful towards women, the promotion of Terry Richardson, treating him like a saint, letting him do a ton of photo shoots in Vice, even featuring, writing articles about him in Vice. So this was a mindset, and also we already know that there is a rampant sexual harassment culture at Vice. That's I think we've also on the cusp of learning about, because Natasha Leonard just came out and went on like a rant on Twitter talking about how this, like, everybody knows that Vice is like disgusting and has like a out of control sexual harassment problem. Yeah, she didn't name any names, and she's been, she was writing there like back in like 2010 after Gavin McInnes left. So you really have to wonder what was Vice like back when Gavin McInnes was writing.
Oh my God,
there.
imagine.
I mean, there's probably some really awful stories that if people were, had the bravery to come out with, could really tank the whole operation. That's my feeling. Because I know for a fact that that some of that stuff in Vice magazine is almost indistinguishable from like Mike Cernovich alt-right red-pilled writings you'd read now. I mean, it just has a little bit of a hipster spice thrown onto it.
And even Cernovich embraces this hipsterdom as well.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot more, I think, to come, and I think it's gonna go through every industry. I hope even in the adult industry, there's more awareness about this, because I think it's very important to make the distinction between, so these culturally taboo sexual things like BDSM and non-consensual sex. And I think the general public doesn't necessarily understand that there's a huge difference, between the two. So I guess that's my final rant.
No, and a good rant at that, Robbie. And I do suspect that we're going to see this happening in more and more fields. Anyway, Robbie Martin, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for putting up with me and my cold. Of course, you can find all of Robbie's work at averyheavyagenda.com, mediaroots.org. All of that will be linked up in the show notes. Robbie Martin, thank you so much.
American.
It's practically narcotics.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Since the beginning, civilizations have risen and fallen. Rome, ancient Persia, Mongolia, Britain, and now America. Befallen by natural disasters, broken families, moral decay, lack of preparedness and conflict. Don't let this happen to you. Are you prepared? Would you like to help others prepare? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is looking for distributors. Email bugoutamerica@usa.com. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, a veteran-owned and operated company. But do it today.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
And when we're not invading some sovereign nation or setting it on fire from the air, which is more fun for our Nintendo pilots, then we're usually declaring war on something here at home. Did you ever notice that about us? We love to declare war on things here in America. Anything we don't like about ourselves, we declare war on it. We don't do anything about it. We just declare war on it. It's the only metaphor we have in our public discourse for solving problems, declaring war. We have to declare war on everything. We have a war on crime, the war on poverty, the war on litter, the war on cancer, the war on drugs. But you ever notice we got no war on homelessness? Huh? No war on homelessness. You know why? There's no money in that problem. No money to be made off of the homeless. If you could find a solution to homelessness where the corporate swine and the politicians could steal a couple of $1 million each, you see the streets of America begin to clear up pretty quick. I'll guarantee you that. I will guarantee you that.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, rocket copy. 3, 2, 1. Engage.
Prepare your American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. Of course, you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, as well as on my website, PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And quickly, I just wanted to mention a few things before we bring on our next guest. One of them is that my friend Katie Aguilera, who is also a former colleague of mine over at Newsbud, has written an excellent article talking about why she left Newsbud, why Newsbud acted very much like a cult. And I know people have still been interested in that whole saga of my life. So I will link up to that, but you can find it on Katie's website, seekingredress.com. So definitely go check that out. And of course also to say that today is the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. I thought I would just throw that out there. And also, it is the New York City mayoral election. I did not vote, but I'm pretty sure de Blasio is going to win and Bo Dietl is going to lose. And on that note, we're bringing on a good friend of the show, a frequent guest, and of course a former New Yorker who knew Bo Dietl, Ed Opperman. How are you?
Yeah, Bo's not going to win. Huh? It's a shame.
I know. Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, no, Bo Blasio's a sellout, man. What, the guy calls himself a socialist? This guy got to be kidding me. He's a sellout.
No, he's horrible. He's horrible. Yeah. But I mean, Ed, as someone that lived through probably more mayoral elections than I have, I mean, I was unaware that there was even like a campaigning going on until a few months ago. Like sometimes here in New York, it really is like, it's a landslide. I mean, I think the last time de Blasio was elected, there was 24% turnout.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was there in the room with, Raul Felder, Bo Dietl, Rudy Giuliani, and, Jackie Mason. When they made the decision, they made the brilliant decision to have Jackie Mason campaign for Giuliani. And then he went out like a couple of days later, he started calling people Schwarzes.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, God, jokes.
No, I think Bo Dietl is about to land himself a very cushy, spot on like Fox Business or something like that. Where he's been on repeatedly throughout this whole campaign. But enough about Bo Dietl. And I wanted to have you on to sort of continue the conversation that we were having in the first hour with Robbie Martin, sort of talking about this epidemic of sex crimes in Hollywood, but in the media as well, amongst politicians, and something that I brought up with Robbie in the first hour, and I was just telling you right before we went live, and I think you had not heard of this, but George Bush Sr. has a running joke that apparently he says all the time. He asks a woman, do you know who my favorite magician is? And then they say no, and then he says David Copperfield, and then grabs their ass. And apparently he did this even it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and Barbara Bush made a joke about it, like, "Oh, George, you're gonna get in trouble." I was telling Robbie, I found this interesting because David Copperfield connected to Jeffrey Epstein. He's got his own rape allegations against him. But you had not heard that, right, Ed?
I had not heard that. I heard that when he was grabbing women's asses, that Barbara would say, "Oh, George. Yeah. Oh, what would Aleister Crowley say?
Yeah, right.
But what do you call it? But, I did a whole show about Copperfield and that whole case.
Yes, that's right. No, I know. And that was, I was saying to Robbie in the first hour, the first thing that popped into my head when it came out that Bush would say David Copperfield is like, I mean, is that like a, double entendre or something? You know what I mean? Is there like a hidden meaning behind that joke, given who David Copperfield is?
Yeah, I had never heard that expression relating to Copperfield, but the story with him, and it's all, you could find it all on smokinggun.com, all the court docs. He was luring these girls out to his private island, another one just like Epstein.
Yeah.
And I think he was even doing the thing. No, that was the other guy. But one of these girls said he was holding her head under the water and trying to drown her, just to terrify. And he left her. He got her passport and took her passport away from her. She was like stranded on the island. And then she got the FBI investigated this too, and the reason why they dropped the charges, they dropped the investigation into Copperfield, is because she got caught up. She got raped again in a hotel room. I think it was in Seattle or something like that, or Oregon, up northeast, up northwest, and she got raped again. And so they said, well, and then she's disqualified because she gets raped too often.
Yeah, right.
Along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, and of course too. In the original criminal complaint against Epstein, several of the girls talked about getting tickets to David Copperfield shows. That was something that Epstein would sort of dole out as, payment and stuff for his quote unquote massages. But, speaking of Epstein, you should always have a good segue when you do radio. Speaking of Epstein, with this Hollywood scandal, we've had two people that have emerged sort of on like polar opposites. One as a predator, Kevin Spacey, the other Courtney Love as something of a whistleblower, a sort of unspoken hero, both of which have not deep, but are connected in one way or another to Jeffrey Epstein. And I bring this up just because you did recently, Ed, you had an amazing interview with Mike Parziale. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, Mike Parziale. Yeah, great guy.
Excellent show. I highly recommend it for everyone out there. I'm going to try and get Mike on my show to talk about this. But you guys did a whole thing about Corey Feldman and stuff. So if anyone's interested in that, I would just recommend they go check out Ed's show on that. And a big thing that Mike Parziale kept saying was that, Feldman is not necessarily the best messenger for this message. And that instantly, of course, reminded me of Courtney Love. So she, back in 2005, at the Pamela Anderson roast for Comedy Central, she told Natasha Leggero that, the advice she would give to young women in Hollywood is, I don't remember the exact quote, but basically never go to a private party at the Four Seasons if Harvey Weinstein invites you. And everybody, oh my God, you see, Courtney Love, everybody knew this was back in 2005. Look how brave she is, this, that, and the other thing. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Courtney Love's phone numbers were in Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Little Black Book. But more importantly is that when Alfredo Rodriguez, who was the house man for Epstein, when he tried to sell the address book, he circled the names of people that he believed could be potential material witnesses to crimes that Epstein committed against the young girls. And lo and behold, Alan Dershowitz's numbers are circled, Ehud Barak, Trump, Jean-Luc Brunel, Viscosi, who's the pilot, and Courtney Love. What was Courtney Love's numbers doing in Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book? Why was Alfredo Rodriguez circling them? And I'm not denying that Courtney Love has been a victim of sexual abuse. I think she has. And, you hear these stories about her being a stripper when she was like 16. I mean, there's no way she wasn't being abused. But that doesn't really necessarily excuse her relationship with another abuser. And I don't know, Ed, you actually know Courtney Love's dad a little bit. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I like Hank Harrison, by the way, Courtney Love's father. He's an interesting character. A lot of people, have their complaints about him, but I think he's pretty straight with me. I've met him in person. We filmed a couple hours with him at his home, and then we went to his little horse ranch. He told me about Courtney Love that when she was a teenager, she lived with a dominatrix madam who ran an escort service. And Courtney Love lived in that house with that woman for a long time. And he suspected, too, that Courtney might be involved in some kind of escort service, pandering kind of employment operation going on there as well.
Yeah.
And by the way, too, because Courtney Love, was hooked up with Epstein. We can't deny that. She has this background, this other connection. So what kind of hero is she to be outing Weinstein? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's just, again, that it seems as if so many people are tainted by this epidemic of sexual abuse, sexual violence towards men and women, particularly in the media and entertainment, that I don't know. I mean, it's kind of people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, or whatever the phrase is. I mean, like you said, Courtney Love is no saint. I don't know. It makes you sort of question. It's also then it's like, is she really the best messenger for a story like this?
Yeah, same point that Mike Parziale was making, that Corey Feldman is no saint in all this, and especially when you look into his whole story. We talked about it on the show. One thing is he dedicated his album to that guy, Majestic Magnificent.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Who was one of Michael Jackson's thugs. He uses magic with a K. He's one of those kind of magicians. And that guy's a character, a Vegas character. He's dead now, but this guy was a local character. He's a well-known thug. So you got Feldman's connection with him. You got Feldman's defense of Michael Jackson. Who my God, is there anybody who still thinks that this guy's not up to shenanigans? And then there's the whole thing too about Feldman introducing Corey Haim to this guy Marty Weiss. There was that connection. And so Feldman, I don't see him as the hero that many people are making him out to be right now, just on those three things alone. But then again, Mike Parziale brought up the whole thing about Corey's angels. With these women, they have to sign this contract and go live with him, and it's very bizarre, and he pretty much controls their life. It's like a cult, like he said. And Mike Parziale, behind the scenes, Mike Parziale is very, very active with he knows all these people. He talks to all of them a lot more than he admits on the air. Because he ran this group, it's mjvictims.com, which takes you to in support of Wade Robeson, one of the guys suing Michael Jackson. So he's really tuned into all this stuff, Parziale. Yeah.
Oh, and as Mike, I think, talked on your last show, I mean, he's a victim of abuse as well, too. So, he I think, he has a really interesting grasp on this, and as a much more sort of deeper, everybody wants to be the crusader against the evil pedophiles.
Suddenly.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, of course, suddenly, right? Yeah, I know. I mean, it's, we briefly touched on Mike Cernovich in the first hour, but he's just the biggest piece of shit when it comes to this, because he's going on and on about the pedophiles, and we got to support Corey and all this stuff, and this guy's still involved in a lawsuit alongside Alan Dershowitz. He's still defending Trump and his sexual assaults. I mean, Ed, you've talked about this before on your show. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I mean, Trump raped his first wife. That's not even really debatable.
It's right. She wrote about it in a book. She mentioned in court papers, the divorce papers. He's never denied it either, by the way. Gloria Allred right now has a whole bunch of women that are suing Trump for defamation because he called them liars when they came out and said that he harassed them and molested them and stuff like that. But by the way, too, you talk about how now everybody's coming out. Everybody, man, my God, especially these right wingers. Everything's pedogate this and pedogate that. But where were they with McMartin preschool? Everyone was going on and on about how it was all satanic panic and this business about the kids, the false memory syndrome. all this stuff. And they made a movie about it. It's all fake. James Woods, one of the heroes of all this stuff, right? He was in the movie. The guy,
was he really?
Oh yeah, man, Oliver Stone produced the movie. And James Woods starred in it. And it's a whole whitewash of the McMartin people. The people who helped write this movie are people from the false memory syndrome, who, by the way, too, they're the ones that got, they used their house when 60 Minutes did that big interview. They turned the whole tables on this stuff. It was filmed in the house of these false memory syndrome people. But I just came out, I got some new information, just came out on this McMartin thing, where I interviewed the guy, the first geologist who was on the scene ever, way in the beginning, before they were even arrested. This guy was out there, and he went out there with his ground-penetrating radar, and he said, well, I could find no anomalies in the ground. I could find nothing unusual. And so everybody always quotes him and says, oh, this guy came out, and he said he couldn't find any tunnels. He couldn't find anything. Well, I'm the only guy ever to interview him. It's in my members section, OppermanReport.com. You can go there right now and buy it for $2. I'm the only guy that's ever interviewed this guy in 30, 40 years, whatever it is, And I get a hold of the guy, find him. He's willing to talk. He's a happy guy, likes to talk. I get him on the phone. He lives in Malibu with his great life. What do you call it? And, yeah. And he says, well, yeah, you're right. The first time I was there, I couldn't find anything, but they wouldn't let me look underneath the garage. They said it belonged to the neighbors. But then later on, when the property was changed hands, changed ownerships, they had raised the property and they had raised the garage. And I saw with my own eyes a hand-dug room underneath the garage, and there was steps, hand-dug steps. In the hard, he had a word for it, like hard sand or whatever it calls, limestone, shale, whatever. And he says he saw it hand dug by hand. He says, and that's unusual. And he tells me, listen, all you got to do is go get the title records, because there's going to be all kinds of grading and reports and stuff like that. Reports that'll be in the title report, and that stuff goes back hundreds of years. So it's there. It's a fact that there was a tunnel underneath the McMartin, not a tunnel, but a room.
No, it's so funny you mentioned. I didn't realize that James Wood was in that movie, but that of course fits because he's obsessed with Pizzagate. He's accused of picking up 16-year-old girls, right? Or attempting to. And it's so funny that he's there seems to be like that weird, the people that are the loudest, that are the most obnoxious about all of this, have the most sort of shady background and past. And it always just makes you want, it's like, any, right-wing, politician that's always harping on about, the evil homosexuals, they're always the ones getting caught in, the men's room, at an airport or something like that.
With that wide stance.
Yeah, exactly. With the wide stance. Yeah, exactly. Right, it's just like, come on, man, just be who you are, you know what I mean?
I was just telling you, we just took this long road trip, so we had to use like a lot of public bathrooms. So, like every time I walk into a public bathroom, I get nervous and stuff. You know, keep my feet together.
I know you don't want to give off the wrong impression. Yeah. That is so interesting. I didn't know that connection. That also just sort of, really go off kind of on a tangent here. We briefly talked about this. I think the very first time we ever, chatted it, but, you're familiar with the film Capturing the Friedmans, which is about Arnold Friedman and, a very famous, sexual abuse case out on Long Island, in Great Neck. And that, of course, was directed by, what's his name? Andrew Jarecki, I think it was Andrew Jarecki, who also directed The Jinx about Robert Durst, and who's also in Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book. And his family is very close with Epstein's family. Not that there's necessarily anything there, but, it's just interesting. And as you pointed out, the Capturing the Friedmans is kind of a whitewash of, what actually went on there. And, Jarecki was funding for Jesse Friedman, who's a son who was accused of abusing children. He was funding for his Innocence campaign.
Yeah, and he left a lot of stuff out of that movie too, because the father's brother during the film in the documentary says, "Oh, I didn't know anything about this," but he admitted later on that they were both molested as kids and that they had sex with each other and stuff. So, yeah, and he says, "Oh, I was sworn to keep it secret until after he died." You know what? I just wanted to back up on one thing before we get too far. Is the whole thing about Kevin Spacey being on Epstein's plane. Because the day he was on that plane, he was on there with Bill Clinton and Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker. And Chris Tucker has the connection to Michael Jackson because Chris Tucker, who, by the way, has his own private plane. There always seems to be a connection with private planes, too, with all this business. Chris Tucker was the one who, when that movie came out, that Martin Bashir movie about Michael Jackson came out, and there was all that uproar about this little kid saying they shared a bed and had his head on Michael's shoulder, and they were saying all this weird stuff. The next day, Chris Tucker, at Michael Jackson's request, went and picked up that family in his private plane and flew them over to Jackson to protect them from the paparazzi.
Right. Yeah.
And then he testifies in court. Oh, I warned Michael Jackson about them. There's something up with these folks. Be careful, Michael. And meanwhile, he's hopping them, throwing them in his plane and taking them over to Michael. You know?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, no, you bring up this infamous what was it, an AIDS conference that Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey, Bill Clinton were all going on, and they just happened to fly on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. And, you know, for faithful listeners will know that, of course, the sort of original storyline with this was that Bill Clinton had never met Jeffrey Epstein prior to this plane trip. And they, you know, I think it was just his assistant that vaguely knew Epstein, which is, of course, a lie. But, you know, that whole plane trip, I mean, I'm beginning to question all of, you know, I mean, what was really going on. There's no way now at this point that you can say they were talking about AIDS while they were traveling, or, you know, the plight of Africans when you've got these guys.
The one where it has Clinton, Tucker, and Spacey. The next line is the one that has those porn stars in it. Now, I don't know if it's the same flight or what. It might be a different date. Who knows? But it's there.
Yeah. Well, also, speaking of Kevin Spacey, Ed, you a while back you had Kevin Spacey's brother, Randall Fowler, on your show. Now, of course, everybody, you know, is got an exclusive with Randall Fowler. You know, Daily Mail, a lot of tabloid media and stuff are picking up on this more. But you actually spoke to Randall Fowler before all of this. But basically, explain a bit about the stories that people might be seeing right now in regards to Kevin Spacey's brother and the allegations that he's been making for years as evidence when he was on your show.
Yeah, I had the only audio interview with Randall Fowler ever, like up until just recently. And even a lot of these articles and stuff you're seeing people talking about and they're quoting him, they're taking quotes from my interview without giving me any credit for it. Okay, so I've had Randall Fowler's my guy. I found him years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, let's settle that first of all. Now, the other thing too is what happened is he comes on the show and he starts talking about their father. He's Kevin Spacey's full brother. They have use different names, but they're full-blooded brothers. And their father was a white supremacist who had a little Nazi mustache too, by the way.
Yeah, I know that picture of him. He looks like a young Hitler.
Yeah, bizarre as hell, the whole thing. And he had Nazi swastikas in the house on the walls and stuff like that. So the guy was like a white supremacist, a Nazi sympathizer. And he according to Randall Fowler, that he sexually molested him, physically tortured him, brutalized him, kept him in a closet, did all kinds of horrible things to him. And then we discussed too that his theory that Kevin Spacey was gay, which turned out to be true. You know, that's
something. Yeah.
And that whole bizarre incident with Spacey in London in that park.
Yeah. We got mugged.
Yeah. And he filled a false police report, and it was just very bizarre. And he went back and apologized. But he didn't. I had to tell him about Spacey being on Epstein's plane. He wasn't even aware of any of that.
Oh, really?
No, he didn't know any of that stuff. No.
Huh. Well, and of course now, I mean, if people are Googling this right now or whatnot, I mean, you'll see all these very sensational articles and stuff talking about this, and the. I believe it's their sister Julie has confirmed at least the physical abuse, that their father was a nightmare to be around. What they nicknamed him the creature, I think, is what they called him.
It's been a long time since I did the interview, but and a lot of these quotes you see online. It's still from if you want to hear it directly, you can hear it. You go to oppermanreport.com. It's still available. The Kevin Fowler interview.
Yeah, no, and of course, everyone's exclusive reporting, never before seen, which, I think we've all had to go through, or suffered that in some way or another. But, so now we've got, again, this isn't to excuse Kevin Spacey, but it might kind of, explain a bit about how the person that he's become. But, again, is one of Kevin Spacey's breakout roles, The Usual Suspects, along with Bryan Singer, who's I assume is probably freaking out that the shoe is going to drop with this, because Bryan Singer was involved with what was it, Digital Entertainment News or something, right?
Digital Entertainment Network, DEN.
DEN, yeah. Well, explain a little bit about DEN, because people may not be familiar with DEN, but one of the founders of DEN is Brock Pierce, who is a child actor himself, or was, who was in, I think he was in like, what was it? I think First Kid with Sinbad. Anyway, Brock Pierce is also a huge player in Bitcoin. And he's a Bitcoin entrepreneur and has threatened a bunch of people, online for talking about his connections with this whole scandal. But what's going on there? Because I assume this it's possible that this might be brought up again soon.
Well, really interesting about that whole thing with DEN and Bryan Singer and that house that they call the Embassy. One thing is really odd. Is right now they just came out a brand new movie by Ben Stiller, and it's a weird movie about how he's taking his kids to college and he's thinking about his former college roommates and what's become of their lives. And one of the characters is obviously labeled after the people that were hanging out at that house, because it's the same. I think they actually filmed it in that same pool. In the backyard of the Embassy, there, the property of Bryan Singer's properties. It's very bizarre. Yeah, it's really weird. And when you see it, and it's all about gay guys dancing around naked and stuff like that.
This is a new movie?
Brand new. You can find it you have to find it on Putlocker, one of those things.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. The ending's kind of weak, but it's a good movie. But it's really weird because you see that backyard. That's the same backyard.
Huh.
Now, who was it that put up, by the way, this whole DEN, Digital Entertainment Network, this is way back when they didn't even have, it was dial-up time. So the theory was they were going to have a movie studio where you could watch streaming video, but no one could watch it because no one had a fast enough connection. It was impossible to watch or to even download these movies and TV series and stuff like that. But these guys, I think it was David Geffen. Wasn't it David Geffen?
Geffen was involved with them. Yeah. Or he at least fronted them money.
Oh, $150 million. They pounded money on these kids. And that little kid you're talking about, too, that Brock kid, he was taken away from his parents at like 14 years old and taken to go live with this other guy. Bizarre story there, too, as well. You can find all this in that movie, An Open Secret. I'm supposed to have those guys on my show, but they kind of bailed at the last second. But they made it like it was a real thing. Like if this was a real TV series and there were real movies that they were filming, because they were doing auditions and they were filming stuff, but no one could watch it because no one had a fast stream. And there was all these allegations of what went on at these parties, there were lawsuits. So that's all there. But by the way, David Geffen, there's a connection with him and Courtney Love too, Courtney Love was using his private plane. I got that from Hank Harrison.
Huh.
Yeah.
Hey, right.
Hey.
It's like
explaining to do.
Yeah, I know, it's like never ending. Well, and yeah, I would definitely encourage people to look into the DEN and or Digital Entertainment Network, that whole thing, because that's it's a fascinating story too. I mean, because there's also these allegations that David Geffen was hiring hitmen and was stalking Mark Collins Rector, who I think was the sort of the original head of DEN, who is also, I believe, was convicted of child abuse. Very, very important sort of piece in this whole puzzle. And of course, that was sort of covered up at the time, and then was sort of briefly touched on with an open secret, and then was sort of brushed aside yet again. But Ed, something that I was talking about in the first hour with Robbie that I really want to kind of get into with you is this, the impression that some people in Hollywood, we don't have to name names, but and certainly you see this more and more in the conspiracy culture. There's all this, we're going to expose it. Okay, don't worry, everybody. We are going to uncover the pedo network and all this stuff, but we're in danger, and we need your money because we need to get protection, and lawyers are expensive, and blah blah blah. What? Speaking as someone who is involved in the legal profession, Ed, what can people really do in terms of this? Because I think if real change is going to happen, while I applaud everyone that has come forward and has denounced people and have outed people as being involved in sexual abuse and harassment even and all this stuff, unless we really start kind of putting these people in jail and attempting to kind of use the powers of the law against them, I don't really see any real change. The predators will continue to operate. They'll just get better at operating. They'll become smarter. They'll figure out ways around this. So, and again, there's always this, we just need money, and if you give us money, then all shall be revealed. What do you make of this? And as someone that's involved, as a private investigator, I mean, I don't know. I mean, all these things, we need security and we need lawyers and all this stuff. I mean, it's possible to do this, is it not, Ed?
Oh, yeah. It's beneficial to do it. And even, like a guy like Feldman saying that, I can't name any names because I'll get sued if I name names, right? But actually, sometimes, first of all, why wouldn't you want to get sued? Then everything goes out, and it's discovery.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? There's all of that. But also, too, like a lot of these cases, like even when it's past the statute of limitations, it's past the statute of limitations, nothing we can do. Well, you make the allegation public, and then the person makes a statement and says, well, he's a liar. Then you sue them for defamation. Now you got your lawsuit, and so there's ways to make money on this, and it happens all the time. And there's stuff too. You were talking about Geffen hiring hitmen. There's other stories about Weinstein hiring thugs and stuff like that. I'm surprised there's not more talk about that than there's stuff about he's wanking himself and pulling his pants down. There's a lot of stories with this guy, and even there's a movie that's out too with Troy Duffy. Called Overnight, about this guy. The whole story about how Weinstein was going to back his movie, and he bought him a bar, and he gave him a bar as part of the deal. There's a whole documentary about it, which it's an interesting documentary. And at the end, they allude to that Harvey Weinstein hired a guy to jump on the curb and try and run him over with a car. And I don't know if that really happened, but the thing is, these stories are out there.
Yeah.
So I never heard about Geffen hiring a hitman, but you hear these stories all the time. Yeah. So especially these celebrities, they don't want this coming public. They want to keep it quiet. So even the threat of a lawsuit is enough to get things moving. And you know what? And you do need security, okay? Because there's serious threats. These people do have real serious thugs, and they got off-duty cops walking for them and stuff like that. There are threats, and people get scared, and people take off and running. I've seen that, but it can be done. It definitely can be done with a little savvy. And someone like Feldman, he should know the right people to do this. I don't know why he doesn't. But we might be seeing some developments in all that situation.
Well, I just saw that he's supposedly he went to the LAPD today and gave them a whole statement. I don't know, and the LAPD is not confirming this. So, we'll see what comes of that. But I guess it's just I think again, legal action is really the only way to kind of really stop this.
Going to the LAPD, It's so bizarre to me, the way people do this. It's just, I don't even understand what's going on. Because even, I heard a guy the other day, he comes back, he's the guy who says he hacked into the Alefantis ping pong computer.
Sure.
No, I tell you, the guy sounded legit. He made some police reports. He contacted the FBI. He made police reports, and he seemed sincere. And then he starts talking about this weird stuff about how the Las Vegas shooting, the FBI is covering up, whatever. But the thing is, like, I don't understand how people who seem to have a little bit of savvy going on, or they're in the public eye, why would they pick up the phone and call the LAPD? Like, there's a way to do this where you just swear out a statement, you swear out an affidavit, then you serve them with it, and now they got to do something. Or you could take it straight to the DA. You don't have to go to the police. You go to the prosecutor. I don't understand how people don't know how to do this stuff.
Well, I guess to play devil's advocate, and what many people say is, oh, well, they're all in on it,
Right.
You can't go to the police because the police are in on it. You can't go to the DAs because they're – and I think in some cases that is probably true. I wouldn't – I don't really hold the LAPD up in the highest regard. I'm sure they've covered up God only knows what for people in Hollywood. Certainly cops in Hollywood.
We know Cypress Jr., the prosecutor in New York. We know that he squashed a case for Weinstein.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I guess there's something to that, but there's this very disingenuous, just keep giving me money. If you give me money, then I'll be able to name names and I'll do all this stuff. And it's like you kind of have to take a step back and wonder, or you don't even want to go to the police, then name who these people are. Go on the Today Show or whatever and just say this is who it is. At least they're out there then.
Well, also too, I suspect that some of these people have gotten money. From the people that the reason why they're not naming names is because it would only be logical that they would have gotten some money to keep quiet. When you're making this much noise in the background saying, I'm about to name names, the logical conclusion to that would be, especially when you're naming figures that you want, like you have a public negotiation about how much you want, that I can see a counteroffer being made, but you keep my name out of it. You do whatever you want. Keep saying that you're going to name names. Do that all you want, but don't ever mention my name. Here's, $1 million, or $2 million, look what happened in the Epstein case. All those settlements, $1 million, $2 million, it's happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I want to add about Epstein. That always pisses me off, too, about these Johnny-come-latelys who want to talk about Epstein. It's because you and I were talking about the flight logs and the plane and stuff like that. But it's so important for people to realize that it's part of the game with this bunch, the disinfo game, is they want you to think everything happened on this plane. And everything happened on the Lolita Express, and the Lolita Express. Whenever you hear that, I know that it's always a problem. These crimes, or it all happened down at pedophile island.
Yeah.
Right? But these crimes happened in Palm Beach, Florida, a stone's throw from Mar-a-Lago. They happened to employees of Mar-a-Lago, and plus we don't know who went to this island because we only know who went to the island on Epstein's plane. But a guy like Trump has his own plane. He can go there anytime he wants. He could have went there 10,000 times. We don't know how many times he went there. Or names can be left off of flight logs. That means nothing. You can rent little planes all over the place to go wherever you want to go. People do it all the time with big bags of pot and big bags of drugs. Right. Little planes, and no one asks a damn question. You just get on the plane, you pay me $8,000, and you're on your plane. You're done. So forget the plane and forget Pedo Island. This stuff is happening in Manhattan. This stuff is happening in Florida. And they want
yeah. Well, and there's still ongoing cases down in Palm Beach and here in New York, involving him. It might take and we complain about this all the time, but you might have to do a little digging to find some information about it. You might have to get some docket sheet numbers and things like that, but they're happening. It's definitely going on. Well, and again too, there's the politicization of all of this too, Ed. I mean, especially when it comes to the, like for instance, everyone is sort of just up in arms about, oh, thank God Anthony Weiner's finally going away, and yeah, I am glad that he's going to jail. I hope he has a really unpleasant time in prison. But he's he's just one. We've got a man in the White House, okay, who's involved in this, who's accused of doing way worse stuff than Anthony Weiner ever did. It's not to make it, again, not excusing Anthony Weiner or trying to equate them as different, but this is a much huger problem involving a lot more people.
Also, I just did that show. In fact, I did 2 shows. There's one in the members section. There's another one for free, 2 different guests, about Steve Bannon's porn and meth house down there in Palm Beach.
Yes.
And the latest one we just had with the tenant who took over after Bannon got kicked out, the next tenant that came in, and he found the residue of the meth lab and people talking about them filming porn in there. There's no doubt about it. But also, too, he found indications of padlocks being on some of the doors and windows. The signs of it. And so what do you call it? When he was being interviewed by the police, they were talking about human trafficking going on here, and it was being similar to other houses where they found these same kind of scenarios. So there's no doubt that they were filming porn there. There's many witnesses to that. There's no doubt that they were cooking meth in there because they did chemical tests. They found the residue. There's no doubt that Bannon's ex-wife was arrested for trying to sneak a cell phone and some marijuana into the jail where her boyfriend was. And they were all there in that house, the boyfriend, Bannon, and the wife.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Three's company, huh?
Yeah. Who knows? Well, I guess you lose count after a while. But who knows? So this stuff is right under our noses. No one ever talks about this. How come there's Spacey? Kevin Spacey every 10 minutes on TV. They never mention his connection to Epstein. Why not?
Yeah, I know that is really funny, especially now when he's so toxic. He just went into quote sex rehab at the same place with Weinstein. Yeah, and it's like, dude, there's sexual addiction, and then there's being a serial sexual harasser. You can't really go to rehab for that. You know what I mean? Especially when with Spacey, you're talking about 14-year-old boys. I mean, that's not really. I don't know. There isn't really pedophilia rehab. I don't think you can't really kick that addiction. I don't think. That seems much more hardwired. It's really interesting, as you said. They'll bring up Kevin Spacey and all this stuff, but never that he flew on Epstein's plane. I mean, I assume it's because Bill Clinton was on the plane. They don't want to. Bill is innocent.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, because his connection to Trump, his connection to Clinton. The guy, we got the letter, 24-page letter. The guy says he created the Clinton Foundation. The creator of the Clinton Foundation, one of them, was Jeffrey Epstein, convicted pedophile. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ed.
Even Trump's connections to John Casablancas from Elite Modeling Agency is. What more? What? I don't get it. What more do you need?
No, I know. Well, I mean, that's what I was going to kind of go with you there. It was the again, it's all like stuttering Stanley over here. It's all about Hollywood right now. Everyone in Hollywood is being accused of these things, and of course, Trump is a Hollywood personality. Remember back to the Billy Bush interview, or the hot mic with Billy Bush grabbing pussies and stuff like that. That is virtually all but forgotten. Maybe it's joked about here and there on Saturday Night Live, but that has sort of just been sort of swept away. I don't know, any sort of sense on something with that happening? Because it's interesting too. Trump had said nothing about all of this stuff, with Weinstein and others. And you would think this would be like he would love to.
Well, at first he said I heard about Harvey Weinstein, and to be frank, I'm not surprised.
Right, yeah.
What another interesting thing about that whole Billy Bush thing, he's a cousin of the Bushes, that Billy Bush.
Yeah.
What's going on with that? And I talked about that phone call I got where they said that Kellyanne Conway was the one who leaked that and she was CIA and all kind of craziness. Who knows?
Really? The Billy Bush tape?
Oh, I didn't tell you that story?
No.
The day, this is a great story, man. The day of the debate, it was the 19th. I guess it was October 19th. It was the one where, they had, Paula Jones was there and Juanita Broderick was there and all those people.
Right.
They've all done my show. They all know me. I was friends with Paula Jones before even, she made her comeback. We were buddies. But she says anyway, she thinks I'm a liberal anyway.
Okay. Yeah, well.
But the thing is, so the day of that debate, I get a phone call, from someone who just got off the phone with Roger Stone. And he says, Ed, we need Kathy O'Brien's contact information. We need her phone number and her email because Roger Stone wants it. Right? This is the day of the debate. You know Kathy O'Brien, that story, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, her husband just died, whatever. And so I said, I'll give you the information. I said, and by the way, listen, if you're talking to Stone, here's all my shows about Clinton, all my shows, that I did exposing the Clintons and all that crap. I said, send it over there. So then he goes, yeah, we got ever since this thing, we think it's Kellyanne Conway who leaked that tape because she's CIA. This is the day of the debate. This is what was going on over there behind the scenes at the debate. They're talking about Kellyanne Conway being CIA and leaking the tape, all this kind of stuff like that. And then I had sent him all my shows, all my playlists, and the rest of the couple of weeks, Trump was reading down my headlines. He was talking about the Clinton station. He was talking about Haiti. He was talking about all my stuff. And you know who was doing his opposition research? Giuliani on the plane. Giuliani would have to recognize my name. How many Oppermans could he know in his life?
Right.
So I don't know, man. It's all too crazy for words. But and then again too, Roger Stone, man, too. He has a whole thing. He got exposed for being involved in swingers clubs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I know. No, yeah, and his whole when he was poisoned with polonium, when he was on Alex Jones. My initial thing was he picked up some STD.
I didn't catch that polonium thing.
That was it. Yeah, because he was helping to expose the deep state and all this stuff, and he claimed that he did look sick. He had like some lesions or something on his face. Oh, you did? Yeah, look it up. He's on Alex Jones saying that he was injected with polonium, probably by the Hillary Clinton herself or something. He made it, unlike everyone else, like, Litvinenko and all these other people that kept polonium poisoning and die in about 48 hours. But my initial thing was, he must have, slept, was at the wrong swingers club and picked something up. And he's really, really sick and he doesn't want to talk about it. And so he's making up this whole polonium deep state nonsense.
I made a list of, people associated with Trump, Mike Tyson, Michael Jackson, Epstein. How many rapists, and pedophiles?
Yeah, right.
Casablancas. How many rapists and pedophiles does the average person have associated with? Pictures taken with him, even Stone, and Bannon. Both of those two guys up there with shenanigans.
Well, again, these guys all seem to kind of, predators sort of stick together.
Yeah.
They all kind of hang out with one another. It must help kind of insulate them as well. Ed, quickly, what do you think of Roger Stone being kicked off Twitter?
I think it's because he was freaking out about he had inside information about Manafort, and you read the stuff he was writing. I can't blame him for getting kicked off of that stuff. You can't say that kind of stuff.
I wouldn't know because he blocked me a while ago.
Well, no, I had to Google it to find it, but it was saying like Don Lemon being a cocksucker.
What, really?
Yeah, man. And he's a party boy. All this stuff. It was out there. It was really, especially when you consider a guy worked in the White House. My God, with the Nixons.
I know, yeah, the mouth on him, right?
Yeah, So
do you think there's anything? I mean, are we going to see Roger Stone being indicted alongside Manafort? You think there's any anything to that, or was Stone so sort of off to the side with all that? He might be safe.
I think that there's another 20 people like Papadopoulos out there that are working for the cops right now. I've sat in those meetings where one of our co-defendants just pled guilty, and we're looking over the plea deal, and another guy we know is in an indictment. Well, what do you think is going on? I've sat in that meeting 100 times, and I'm telling you, man, they are in so much trouble.
Right? Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Because look at the metaphor, right? Normally in a charge like that, especially with the federal, with the FBI and the Department of Justice, they throw in those. Oh yeah, well, we're going to throw in some mail fraud, some mail fraud charges. If you look the stamp and you put it down, they're going to throw on those charges. They're not even bothering to do that, man. So he has more charges coming against him too, and then look at this kid Papadopoulos. You read his
pizza-faced dork. He must be just quaking in his boots.
It's all part of the Rosneft oil. You got to listen to that show. It's all Rosneft. It all makes sense when you listen to that show. Grant Stern, the guy's doing great work. But there's no apparatus set up here for the defense. Papadopoulos is getting pinched. He's talking to the FBI. Then no one's telling him not to lie to the FBI. He goes in and tries to bluff his way through it like an amateur. And then when he does get in the jackpot there's no one for him to talk to and say, hey, I need help. What do I do? There's no one coordinating the defense. They're just out there flying in the wind. All of them. Spicer's out there. Priebus is out there. No, Keith Schiller. I know this guy made a deal. I can carry
it. Yeah, right?
Our cop is going to be the first one running in there,
Yeah.
Let's make a deal, oh man, it is so bad. I predicted before the election that Trump was going to wind up in prison, but I never dreamed that the whole
the whole apparatus.
The Trump doorman's going with him. The doorman at Trump's house going to prison with him.
And then you see with Podesta being connected to Manafort, and I don't have it in front of me, but there was this purge, this palace purge in Saudi Arabia over the weekend, and a lot of the guys that were taken out were clients of the Podesta group.
Really?
Which is, I don't know the exact number, but a bunch of them. Which is, I don't know. Maybe there is more to, this Trump Saudi connection as well. Especially when you look at a lot of the Saudis are the only people that are funding some of his, ridiculous real estate projects and things like that. It does make you wonder when, half the royal family is getting put under. They're all being rounded up and brought to the Ritz-Carlton too. Only in Saudi Arabia.
Well, let me tell you something. You got to look up Grant Stern, Rosneft, Trump. It all makes sense. They were all involved in his Rosneft privatization deal at the Mayflower Hotel. Qatar was there. The Philippines were there. It all makes sense. Papadopoulos. The first thing Trump says about Papadopoulos, he's an oil and gas guy. That's no. It's because this was an oil and gas deal. This was the Rust. That's why Tillerson was there, part of this deal. It was a money deal. That's what the whole connection to Russia is. This all makes sense. And by the way, Podestas. Okay, the Podestas, you got to remember, they were part of that whole Panama Papers deal. So they're not filling out that foreign banking form. No,
nobody does.
Yeah, Podestas are going down too, man. Hopefully they should.
I know. I mean, I gotta say, it does seem like we're, while, seemingly you can be more and more corrupt, it does, I don't know, you look at what's going on in Hollywood, suddenly, people are kind of, speaking out and getting the courage to kind of talk about this. And you're seeing this with politics too, where, blatant, shady corruption is no longer being tolerated. Now, maybe this is a political thing. I suspect there's a degree of that. I don't know if there would be a Mueller investigation if Hillary Clinton was elected. But I don't know, kind of at the end of the day, I sort of don't really care. At least we're going to get some of these bad guys, and perhaps this will push people to accept and understand that you don't actually need to kind of put up with all this stuff. I'll throw you, Ed, because you always have these like great, everybody, and you've always got these wonderful personal stories and touches and stuff. I'll say this though, Manafort, he was buying up all this property, and one of the properties he bought to launder money is 2 or 3 doors over from where I grew up. But anyway, we are at the break. Ed Opperman, thank you for joining us. You can, of course, check out Ed's show, The Opperman Report, here on American Freedom Radio on Saturdays. Ed, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pierce. Good night.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.
Since the beginning, civilizations have risen and fallen. Rome, ancient Persia, Mongolia, Britain, and now, America. Befallen by natural disasters, broken families, moral decay, lack of preparedness and conflict. Don't let this happen to you. Are you prepared? Would you like to help others prepare? AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is looking for distributors. Email bugoutamerica@usa.com. Go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, a veteran-owned and operated company. But do it today.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
And when we're not invading some sovereign nation or setting it on fire from the air, which is more fun for our Nintendo pilots, then we're usually declaring war on something here at home. Did you ever notice that about us? We love to declare war on things here in America. Anything we don't like about ourselves, we declare war on it. We don't do anything about it. We just declare war on it. It's the only metaphor we have in our public discourse for solving problems, declaring war. We have to declare war on everything. We have a war on crime, the war on poverty, the war on litter, the war on cancer, the war on drugs. But you ever notice we got no war on homelessness? Huh? No war on homelessness. You know why? There's no money in that problem. No money to be made off of the homeless. If you could find a solution to homelessness where the corporate swine and the politicians could steal a couple of $1 million each, you'd see the streets of America begin to clear up pretty quick. I'll guarantee you that. I will guarantee you that.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, rocket copy. 3, 2, 1. Engage.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio.